Good evening, everybody. Wow, hello? There we go.
Borough Board.
How is everybody doing? Come on, no one's gonna respond to that? We haven't seen each other in 3 months. How is everybody doing?
Great.
All right, hot, great, okay, I'll take any answer. Anything that shows you guys are alive, I'll accept. Welcome to our July Borough Board. Hopefully tonight will be a short and sweet meeting. I'm sorry we had to cancel the last two meeting times, but agenda items were canceled. I know you were probably the most disappointed, Teresa. I knew it. I was afraid to cancel the meeting because I knew you'd be the most upset. But hopefully tonight will be short and sweet, and we'll roll right along and get on with our agenda. But before we do, I want to start with taking the roll. Community Board 1. Community Board 2.
Present.
Community Board 3. Community Board 4. Present. Community Board 5. Community Board 6.
Present.
Community Board 7. Community Board 8. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. Community Board 13. Community Board 14.
Present.
Community Board 15.
Here.
Community Board 16. Community Board 17. Community Board 18. Councilmember Barron. Councilmember Cornegie. Councilmember Cumbo. Councilmember Deutsch. Councilmember Espinal. Councilmember Eugene. Councilmember Gentili. Councilmember Greenfield. Councilmember Lander. Councilmember Levin. Councilmember Mizell. Councilmember Mealy. Councilmember Menchaca. Councilmember Reynoso. Councilmember Traeger. Councilmember Williams. Borough President. Here. Okay, great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, we are shy of a quorum, so we're going to skip over the approval of the minutes from the April meeting. If we're joined later on by additional folks, we will then vote on the minutes from the April 5th board meeting. We have a relatively short agenda tonight, and we're going to roll right into it. The first agenda item is a presentation by the New York City School Construction Authority on active and recently completed school construction projects here in Brooklyn. And I'm going to turn it over to the folks from SCA. It's all yours.
Well, thanks so much for having us. Thanks so much for having us today. I'm Tamara Smith from the School Construction Authority. This is my colleague, Fred Malley. We are going to do a presentation that focuses on current projects, capacity projects, construction projects, and Resolution A projects that are happening right now in the whole borough. I handle North Brooklyn, so districts 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 23, and 32. And Fred handles South Brooklyn.
District 17, Districts 20, District 21, 22.
Okay, so we'll do an overview first of each district, each school district's identified capital needs from our most recent capital plan. We had a March amendment that was passed by the City Council, so it's fully funded through March. And we'll go through that first, and then we'll do a highlight of projects in each City Council district. Alrighty, so we'll start just with our mission statement.
Okay, the mission statement of the New York City School Construction Authority is to design and construct safe, attractive, environmentally sound public schools for children throughout the many communities of New York City. We are dedicated to building and modernizing schools in a responsible, cost-effective manner while achieving the highest standards of excellence in safety, quality, and integrity. And if you just take a look at this one first photograph, you'll see that one of the newest schools we've opened this past September, PSIS 437 at 701 Caden Avenue, and PS 86, a fine example of our restoration of a building a school building over 100 years old. So we renew the old and make the new even better.
All right, so this shows our full budget, capital budget for the School Construction Authority. The total is $14.9 billion, and it's divided into 3 categories. Capital investment, $5.7 billion. And that's all of your renovations, your repairs, your major, whenever you see scaffolding outside of school, that's what we're doing. And that's the capital category, capital investment. Then capacity projects, so that's new schools, brand new buildings, additions, and annexes for new school seats. And then the third category is mandated programs, $3.7 billion. And mandated programs are things that we are required to do by state and federal law that improve schools. For example, replacing boilers with more environmentally sound and efficient ones. All right, so first I'll go through the districts that I handle. This is District 13. I'm sorry that it's a little bit small, but I'll explain. So we have two capacity projects coming on. One is this September, the Dock Street Middle School for STEAM Studies down in Dumbo. It'll have 333 middle school seats. And then the next one is called Pacific Park, which will be near the Barclays Arena. And anticipated date will be announced soon in the next few years. Not cited for District 13 are three projects totaling 1,620 seats. So our challenge for the not cited as we go along is to find spots for those seats. District 14, we have a project cited in Williamsburg Greenpoint for 572 seats. And two more projects that'll add up to 991. District 15, two new projects are cited. The 516 Park Avenue School is in Phase 2. Phase 1 opened 2 years ago. Phase 2 is opening this September. And the PS 32 addition will begin, and that will be 436 extra seats for PS 32, which is in Carroll Gardens, Gowanus. And then we have 6 projects funded, so that's the good news, not cited for District 15. District 19, there will be a 1,000-seat school in Cypress Hills, East New York. And that has been cited near Atlantic Avenue on the corner of Dinsmore and Chestnut Streets.
Okay, in District 20, we're very happy to be working on PS 746. That's on 59th and 3rd Avenue. And that will be over 757 seats badly needed in the Owl's Head Bay Ridge sub-district. Then we have another 4,112 seats that are funded in District 20. As you can see, we have 7 different projects throughout District 20. Our problem there, similar to District 15, is finding sites for public schools. In District 21, we're presently working on the design for an addition at PS 101, which will be 456 seats. And we're also, you see a Project 1 for another 456 seats. We're gearing towards an addition at PS 97 on Stillwell Avenue. Okay, District 22, we have available the 368-seat allocation at Mill Basin and another one at Flatbush for a total of 844 funded seats looking for a site. And then down below we have project number 1 looking for a site for another 456 seats. New schools, now we get to show off some of our
Do you want to get a microphone? All right, so now we are proud to show you a highlight of those projects that we have coming online, all of the capacity that are in design, construction, or have opened in the past school year. Some of our UPKs, which are scattered throughout the borough. We have a few pictures here. Some of our construction projects, which are everything from Sandy projects to, after Hurricane Sandy, finishing those up, to exterior modifications, to all kinds of renovations that make the buildings more functional for the kids. And then we'll talk about Resolution A. The city council members, of course, know what that is, and that's funding that the borough president and the city council members can give to schools for really important projects and upgrades. So this is what Fred pointed out on the front page. This is in Councilmember Lander's district, Council District 39, and it opened this past September, and it is a PSIS. And yeah, Community Board 7. So this is a wonderful new school this past school year. And here's a rendering of the cafeteria for the Dock Street Middle School that I mentioned in Dumbo. That's in District 13. In Council District 33, Councilmember 11's district. And that'll open this September. Yep, Community Board 2. And this September. You want to talk about this?
Well, now this is for Councilman Vincent Gentili. This is his district, and he was, well, we were proud to have him at the ribbon cutting for the addition, badly needed addition of PS 170 in Community Board 10.
Now this is under construction, the one I mentioned, PS 516 in Sunset Park. Council District 38, Councilman Menchaca's district, and also Community Board 7. The anticipated occupancy will be in September. And it's, this section is open, and this section is under construction now.
Community Board 7. Okay, this is PSIS 338, Councilman Eugene's district. And this is Community Board 12, and this is another badly needed school that will serve both the primary and intermediate school populations of that community.
And then the new school in design is Pacific Park in Councilmember Cumbo's district, Community Board 2, Council District 35, and this will be right behind the Barclays Arena, and will be a middle school for 650 students. And then some UPKs. We're very proud to be part of the mayor's initiative on universal pre-K, and we have many opening and have in the past couple of years, and here are just a few. Here's a pre-K center at the old Bishop Ford Catholic High School on 19th Street in Councilman Menchaca's district. And it opened this past September, and it's got hundreds of seats, really a great addition to the community.
Community Board 7.
Yes.
1668 46th Street, Councilmember Greenfield's office, and this is Community Board 12.
His name's not Mike.
3610 Glenwood Road, Councilman Jamani Williams, and Community Board 17. Excuse me.
I think they didn't hear that.
Yeah, Jamani Williams, Glenwood Road, UPK, Councilmember Jamani Williams, Community Board 17.
And then some capital investment projects. These are the big renovations and repairs. And what we did here is we have, I know it's too small for you to see, but we really wanted to show the categories of and the breadth of the work that we do. So we've listed them out by category, and so it's everything from athletic fields to boiler conversions to electrical systems to gymnasium upgrades, heating plant upgrades, kitchens, libraries, lighting fixtures, playground redevelopment, roofs, safety systems, science lab upgrades, and windows. So we really do the schools from top to bottom.
As you can see, this is 916 different projects throughout Brooklyn for $1.4 billion. Now, as noted above, this is for the first 4 years of the 5-year capital plan. So the $14.9 billion is for over 5 years. And this is just for the first 4, because what we do is, as each year goes by, we identify projects for the following year. So there's more to come for Brooklyn, and it's easily going to pass $1.5 billion and over 1,000 different projects.
And here are some. So here's Maxwell High School and Council District 37, and we did the exterior masonry, and you can see the end product here.
Councilmember Hispana's district and Community
Espinal,
Board
right,
5.
Right. And
194 TCU removal, and that's in Councilman Alan Mazel's district in Community Board 15.
so in here, this is an example of what we call TCU removal. We lay people called them trailers. We parents called them trailers. TCUs, when I came to the school construction authority, I said, what is that? Well, it's the trailers that the kids were in for going on 15 years. So part of our goal in the capital plan is to remove TCUs, and when we do, we redevelop the playground because the yards are in pretty terrible shape once the trailers are removed.
The good news is we finally have money in the capital budget to remove all the temporary classroom units or trailers. The reality is, though, we need to find a place to move the children to. So when possible, we'll build an addition or try to move the children into the existing main building.
Right.
But at least the money is there, and then what we do is renovate the space for playground usage.
Here is PS 25 in Council District 36, Robert Cornegay's district, and it's an exterior modernization. As I say, when you see scaffolding and netting, you see our jobs.
That's Community Board 3.
And one of our big goals, one of our most important goals, is to make sure that buildings are watertight, because water infiltration and deterioration is one of the most serious problems in our buildings. And half of our buildings are almost going on 100 years old. So that's why these are such important jobs.
Mark Traeger's district here, we have PS 90, which was unfortunately severely damaged by Hurricane Sandy. And here you can see the installation of some new electrical equipments. We also did climate control, heating plant, boiler upgrades. Fortunately, some of that, we came in, we did the emergency repairs to get the school open. And then finally, just recently, the federal government, through its FEMA funding, is reimbursing the city to do the permanent repairs. This is in Community Board 13.
And then I think this is the last CIP. It's also a Sandy project in Council District 48.
Councilmember Chaim Deutsch and
And a
Community...
similar situation.
Right.
Devastated by Hurricane Sandy, but now back up and running. All right, and then Resolution A projects, as I said, the council people and borough presidents give much-needed funding to schools for capital improvements and enhancement, and we're very grateful for that support, and so are the schools. Here's just an example, major highlights. So in fiscal year 2016, $42 million was given by Borough President of Brooklyn and the city council members, and 306 projects were funded. Auditoriums, science labs, these are some of the main ones, technology, athletic fields, and room conversions.
And as we go out different schools, they always remind us, thankfully, that the borough president, as you can see, really favors increasing the technology of the schools in Brooklyn. So I always receive thank yous for doing the work, but we thank the borough president and council members for funding the work.
So here's an example. This is in Councilmember Reynoso's Council District 34, Community Board 2, I think.
This one's Community Board 1.
1, okay. Is a beautiful rooftop greenhouse, and this was funded by many sources, including the borough president, 2 council members, 1 council member who was outgoing, 1 council member who brought it in when she left, or maybe 3 council members, and an assemblyman, and fundraising by parents. So it's absolutely stunning.
Councilmember Matthew Eugene's district funded this, which is a science lab upgrade, and this is in Community Board 17.
Councilmember Mealy in Council District 41. This is an example of a technology Resolution A, so computers and printers. Very important for PS5.
Community Board 3.
And then finally, in Jefferson High School, Council District 42,
Councilmember Inez Barron.
that's right, Councilmember Barron, there's a beautiful gymnasium upgrade. And this is our contact information. We're happy to take questions and calls from any community board members and council people and answer questions and, give you information when you need it.
I'd just like to add, Brooklyn was able to receive one of the 3 class size reduction projects in the city, and that will be going to the East New York Family Academy. So another project added to the list.
Do you have any questions? I know we had one from CD6 first.
Yeah, so I think I might have misunderstood, or I hope I did. I think I heard you say that there's capital money for trailer removal and then funds to enhance the play space where the trailer's sat, but there was not necessarily funds for new construction of student space. So where are the kids going, and why is that put in a capital line if they don't have anywhere to go?
Well, the idea is that in some cases, if the district has a need for new capacity, what we can do is we could do a combination of building an addition, say, for the new capacity needs, but it would also include the students in the trailers. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. But the first priority would be finding if the district has funding for new schools. If they don't have the funding for the school, then we have that dilemma, which is occurring, that we have money to remove the temporary classroom units, but we don't have a place to put the children. So what we've currently done is taken away where the TCUs, if you will, are not fully occupied or needed. We've already removed those. Now we're trying to struggle with finding places either in the existing school or adjoining schools, which is always a headache for the parents if we rezone. So, but that's where we're at. We have the money to build an addition, and if we could do 2-for-1, get relieve overcrowding and also take the children out of the TCUs, then the addition goes up.
That's clear, thank you.
Doris? Oh, Councilmember.
In School District 20, Community Board 10.
Doris, can you just talk into the microphone?
In School District 20, Community Board 10, we have a junior high school that's having facade and window replacement. It's Dyker Heights Junior High. And it has been a very, very difficult project. Early in the game, the wall collapsed into several classrooms. And there have been continuing problems. What mechanism does the CSA have to remove bad contractors from their procurement list?
Okay, at IS 201, actually it was the windows that fell in during a 40-mile-an-hour wind gust. What we have done at IS 201 with the contractor, we've given him an unsatisfactory evaluation, which means that he cannot bid on other city jobs, school project or any other city job. So what we're doing is monitoring his actions now, and the hope is at that school we'll have that project finished in the fall of this year.
Councilmember?
Fred, I'm curious, with the lack of space that you have in many of the districts, you do have the ability to use eminent domain when necessary. I'm curious, how many times have you in recent years used that power?
I don't have the exact number, but I could tell you as a policy, it's a last resort for us because twofold. One, if there's a going business, we don't want to put that person, lose the jobs that going concern is providing for the community. Secondly, if it's residential, we don't want to displace residents. But if, what we mostly use it is if it's like an abandoned property, a warehouse no longer, a factory no longer being used, Then the issue is we try to negotiate with the owner. And what we do is we try to settle, because the process will take about a year in court for the court to rule. So it's a long process, and oftentimes just the threat of us having and exercising eminent domain will have either the owner, I don't want to say come to the table, because in other words, we don't start with the threat. We say, are you interested in selling your property? Our policy is we ask first. If it's on the market, and then we begin negotiations, which frequently happens most often, and then it's an argument over money, because frankly, it's the city they think is deep pockets, and frankly, in my opinion, they try to take advantage of that situation. Then we'll utilize and going into the eminent domain situation. And in your, well, actually just a few blocks out of your district, 59th and 3rd Avenue, that's where we're at. We're negotiating with the owner to say, but the problem there is oftentimes there's 3 owners. So we've begun the legal process there. So we are using it, but we use it sparingly.
Just talking to the microphone. Right in front of Alvin.
Thank you. I thought the presentation was nice and it was comprehensive. I'm wondering, because I only noted one school in District 32, and that was one of your earliest notions at Public School 86, the one that was over 100 years old that was renovated. Where can I find all of my district schools and the work that was done? That's in District 32.
In District 32, yeah. It's in the, I don't know if you have access to the capital plan. Do you have a copy of the capital plan? The Department of Ed's 5-year plan? It's all, they're all contained in there, up to the current year. I mean, if you don't have it, we could send, well, you know,
I just want District 32.
All right, if you give me your email address, I'll send it to you. District 32, you want the capital, all the projects that we have in District 32.
All of them.
That's not a problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, it's online, right?
It's on our website, which is nycsca.org. The capital plan is there. Every school district has got a section, and every single project from new capacity to UPKs to all the renovation jobs, everything is in there.
Thank you.
And it's very thick and very long, but readable.
Rob?
Clear.
As a segue, I would encourage my colleagues to use an internet search engine rather than the SCA website for finding the 5-year plan. Once you find it, it is very well organized in the same way that the presentation was, new projects, upgrades, etc. But if you poke around the website, good luck to you.
I have good news. We have a completely redesigned website. You've heard that before. It's not the best organized, but we have a total redesign that'll be out online in just a few weeks.
Very good.
Much more attractive, much easier.
Wait, before you continue, how about we do this? Could you email the link to the plan to me? I will distribute to the entire
Yes.
board, and then everybody will have some great summer reading. Okay? Great. All right, Rob.
It actually is fascinating in its own wonky way. I'm sure Alvin Burke would enjoy it. I did. IS 653 in Pacific Park is not in Community District 2, it's in Community District 8, but will serve residents of Community District 2. And I've read recently that the building has experienced some delays and that the projected opening date has been pushed back. Can you comment on that?
You know, I can't really. We had a projected date in 2020, and it may be, but we're not quite yet ready to say that will be a delay of such a long delay. So I'll go back to my colleagues and just see if we have any absolute confirmation of that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
And then I was wondering, you mentioned that there are 1,620 seats funded in District 13,
Yes.
and Community Board 2 is very pleased and grateful for that, and you said the challenge is finding sites. We do have some sites. I can talk specifics. For example, one site where a developer of a new property has reportedly traded term sheets. back and forth, and apparently a deal couldn't be reached. I'd be interested to learn more about that. And then also, as I've commented before, and I won't belabor the point, but I think some other boards may have a similar experience, so I think it bears mentioning. To say, send us sites at schools.nyc.gov is just so one-sided. Really would, there's, as someone with a design degree, there's more to building a school than finding a large enough site and designing it. Zoning's an issue, et cetera, et cetera. So we really need to find a way to have a constructive dialogue. And to that end, I also would be intrigued to see a set of standards for school sites. We recently had 2 developments in Community District 2, granted triangular sites, but about 25,000 square feet footprints. And then at the same time that we're reviewing the most recent one, there's an article in the newspaper saying that a site that's 100 by 100 may be suitable for a school. That's 10,000 square feet. So, it's really hard to sort of propose sites when it isn't even very clear what constitutes an acceptable site. Yes, better opportunities for dialogue and clearer criteria for sites would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Barry?
Just as an overview, we look for 20,000 square feet, but it's not a perfect world. So then we try to make do with what is available.
Barry?
Yes, just to follow up, also, if you can make this presentation available to us.
Send that to me with
Email
the
it
link.
to Andrew, and he'll send it around to everyone.
Okay, I just have a follow-up question then. So who decides when a new site is needed in a particular district? Who decides where it goes, and is it the School Construction Authority or the DOE?
It is a partnership for sure. We work with the DOE to determine what seats are needed. We look at demographics and population studies, and the Blue Book, which is the capacity, another enormous book that the DOE puts out, which shows exactly what the capacity of every school is and how over or under the target it is. And when there are districts where schools are over capacity, clearly they need seats. They're overcrowded. And when there are demographic changes that show that populations in neighborhoods are exploding and children are being born and moving into the neighborhood, all of those things help us to determine that seats are needed.
So you do demographic studies and not like based on applications?
No,
No.
actually, it's based on demographics, census tracts.
Yeah.
It's a multitude of data, but also what we've recently done in the past year, we've formulated a committee with a number of third-party groups, such as you might have heard the organization Class Size Matters, because they have criticized us in the past for undercounting the need. So we've brought them into our tent, if you will, and now what we've done, as an example, if you go to the 5-year plan, you'll see not only where seats are funded, but we've identified a need for other seats that are unfunded. So it's a step towards bringing in, identifying the need first. Even if we don't have the funding for it, we're admitting publicly, yeah, we need, say, 4,000 seats and we have funding for 2,000 of them. So this group is still ongoing, and they make recommendations to us to how we can improve our demographic studies.
The reason I'm asking is because in my district, just for an example, if you're taking data from census and demographics, my district has a very large population of children that go to private school. Now, if you're only taking data from that, not from applications, from actual applications, then you might need to build 10 more schools.
Right. You're right, of
understand
course. Absolutely. And all of that data is taken into account.
And I did see that in my district, you're looking to build
Yeah.
new schools.
What
So that's why
what district is that?
Community District 12.
12. Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, who determines and how do you determine, and so on and so forth.
Well, as Tamara
Well, it's a combination, but you're absolutely right. That's taken into account as well. When there's known numbers of people in a community who may go to outside the public school system, that's taken into account as well. So it's a combination.
I mean, in my district, we have 80,000 children going to
Yeah.
school, but not all
Of
go to
course,
public
not go to
schools.
public
So that's,
schools, right.
that's my
Right,
question.
right, and so what we're trying to emphasize is that it's a combination of all of these different factors, and just looking at the school buildings themselves. You know, when a school building is 130% capacity, right, that's a crowded school, and so that's a clear indication of need. So that's one thing that's right there, exists right now. You don't need a study to see it, but you can, and that's the blue book, right? That's the capacity.
To my knowledge,
utilization
some of
rate.
these children that are overcrowding the schools are not from my district or surrounding districts. They're coming from outside. So-
Well, right, and that's, the Department of Education has created a system of choice. And
Right.
so that is true, that happens as well. Children come from outside the district. That's part of the system right now.
And going to follow up on Councilmember Gentili's question about eminent domain, there was a case in my district in Fort Hampton Parkway where there was a potential eminent domain. You were looking at it, and I would like an update on that. That was about 3 years ago, 60th Street.
Right. What's the question?
Where is it at? Did you guys settle with the owner? Is it still in litigation?
No, that project was dropped.
Was wrapped?
Because of the opposition of the owner. And that's the case where we had entered into negotiations with him, and he was negotiating, but it came down to the price. And then, as you probably very well aware, the night before the community board vote to either support or not support the use of this property for a school, he went to the council member's office and said we were using eminent domain to seize his property. Well, we have not initiated eminent domain, but what happened was that his negotiations, he didn't want to talk to us anymore because he wasn't getting the price he wished. And so he went to the council member. The council member, not knowing, supported his, request not to have this move any forward, and the community board voted down the use of the property for school.
No, I remember all of this. I was just, after all this happened, I wasn't aware what happened in the end, so that's why I was.
Yeah, no, that project is dead.
Okay.
It's severely needed for District 20, but it's dead.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Teresa?
I just want to make a correction on your presentation. PS 195 that you have listed on Van Sicklen Street is incorrect. PS 195 is on Irwin Street. PS 95 is on Van Sicklen Street. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry to belabor this, but I think the discussion, has raised a couple questions for me. Is there a list on the website, whether I can find it or not, that's on my own, but is there a list on your website that actually states the criteria by which how decisions are made for the siting? And I'm not saying the percentages of how that is, but legitimately says, these are the 12 different criteria by which we make a decision, and it's a combination between us and the DOE and these other new nonprofits and counterparts that go into it, because there may be things that, even as good as you guys are, and I think you guys are good, may be missing, like potential new construction or potential rezonings that are happening. And it would be helpful, I think, to each one of us at a community level, as well as the elected officials here, to be able to say, here's the 12 things that go into the list. We should add 5 more because you're missing these 15 other things, and 5 will be what we go for. But if that doesn't exist, if you could provide that, I don't need you to tell me right now, honestly. I'm happy to look it up. I just want to know if it does
I
exist.
understand. It is not on our website. It may be on our redesigned website, now that you've mentioned it. But I thank you for the comment. We've heard it before, and it's something we obviously need to think about, is how to be clearer with the community about what we're looking for, what the criteria are. Now, of course, they change. It's true that in a perfect world, we would look for huge sites that would be flat and, you know, surrounded by no neighbors who would be upset by construction, but that's not the city we live in. So we do look at smaller sites and more problematic sites. We do whatever we can, really, because our commitment is to providing the seats. But thank you.
I'll go back and I'll make this that the Borough Board came up, and this is something that would be appreciated on our new website, that our criteria, although it can change, this is the current criteria, because as you know, your colleague just mentioned, he doesn't know the square footage, he doesn't know any of the criteria, probably most of the people, and frankly, you're our eyes and ears. You know, you're closest to what's happening in communities, and that could be the best source. Before a property goes on the market, if you were to call us, we'd have a head start, because frankly, if it's on the market, we, in order to protect the children, we do environmental studies, feasibility studies. Meanwhile, while we're doing those studies to make sure the site can be remedied, somebody else comes along with money and bought the property. So the sooner we know, the better.
And I will say also that we have followed up on and built sites on, schools on sites that have been suggested by community boards, by council members, by community members. If you send us a site, and I totally, completely take Rob's point, it seems like it's going into an abyss, but it actually isn't. Our real estate folks get it, and we go out and look, we cold call, we do whatever is necessary to investigate the sites. What we need to do a better job of is communicating that to all of you. And so we're committed to doing that.
What I would say is that it's not only site selection, it's actually seat determination.
Yeah, I know.
As my colleague over there said, the seat determination issue is based upon census tract and other things, as well as probably a litany of other items.
Yeah.
The question is,
So you'd like
the
that
point is, I'd just
information
like to
as
know
well.
what that litany is.
Okay, thank you.
Here's an example of what Tamara's saying. The new PSIS 437 on Payne Avenue, Community Board 7 suggested that site to us.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any last questions before we move on? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And just to share some information with everyone, the presentation referenced some of the borough president's investments and the council members' investments. This past budget cycle, the borough president invested $25 million into schools. I think about 90% of that is for technology-related projects. That's been a big push of ours for a very, very long time, and we're going to continue to push that forward to really bring all the technology in our schools and classrooms up to the 21st century. So FYI, you guys are some of the first to know because the budget was passed, what, a week and a half ago? $25 million for Brooklyn schools. There you go. I know we were joined by a few other folks. Thank you very much, guys. We were joined by a few other folks who missed our roll call, so if you came in after the roll, please announce yourselves. We'll start on my left. Councilmember Williams. Yeah. Oh.
Stephanie Zinnerman, Councilmember Cornegie's office.
All right. Next. Carmen? Okay. Yep.
Lloyd Lesperance, Councilmember Espinal.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Now we do have, oh, sorry. You guys can come join us at the table. Yes. Community Board 8. Okay. Anyone else?
I just want to take a moment on behalf of the Borough Board and the Borough Service Cabinet to congratulate Carmen Martinez on her appointment as District Manager at Community Board 9.
You took that right away from me, Rob. I was about to go there next, but that's okay. Congratulations, Carmen.
That memo I asked you to write, skip it. Are we even at least now?
We're even.
Okay.
Great, and I know we have a few new members of the Borough Board here as well, a couple of new board chairs. So if you're a new board chair, if you're just recently elected and you're here, you want to announce yourselves and introduce yourselves.
Barrington Barrett, really elected.
I got to speak into the microphone.
Janice Morgan, Community Board 16, newly elected chairperson.
Great. Congratulations, everybody. Welcome to our Borough Board meeting. And with that, now that we have a quorum, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the April 2016 meeting. Copy was provided in advance. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? We have a motion. Do we have a second for the motion? We have a second. Okay. Any corrections to the minutes? Anyone? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Minutes are adopted. Now we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a presentation by... Yes.
I've been having problems receiving my email. I believe Ms. Fraser brought it to your attention with me.
Yes.
That I'm not receiving anything.
So I went back and I confirmed that you were on the distribution list. I don't know why it slipped off, but I double checked as soon as she emailed me. So you should be receiving the email.
Thank you.
This microphone's cute. Maybe it's the heat that's just wanting us not to talk. Okay. We're gonna push on anyway, despite the heat. So our next presentation is a discussion by the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs on new department initiatives and programs.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I do need to tell you in the beginning that I have another appointment, so I'm going to make this presentation brief. If you do have questions that I'm not able to answer while I'm here, I'm leaving my business card on the table. You can follow up with me either through an email or giving me a call. So thank you for that, for your time. So first thing I wanted to mention is my name is Fred Riley. I work with the Department of Consumer Affairs in the External Affairs Office, and I just wanted to remind you of a couple of initiatives that are relevant that Consumer Affairs is responsible for, and a couple of new items that just came up recently. So the first thing is we have a new brochure promoting the information about the commuter benefit law. The commuter benefit law is a law that basically businesses that have 20 or more employees in New York City are responsible for offering to their employees. The employees don't have to take it, even though I would highly recommend that they do. I personally have been on a commuter benefit plan for several years, and it's a great benefit. Saves you, lowers your taxable income. It also gives the employer the ability to lower his payroll taxes. So we have a lot of brochures. I have a few new brochures at the front desk that you can pick up. So if you want to pick up any, let me know. We can either mail them out to you, drop them off. We also have them in several languages. There's Spanish, English, Russian, Chinese, Haitian Creole, a couple of the languages that we have these materials in. Something excellent. We want to make sure that all the companies that are currently eligible or required to do it get the information, and also that the employees that are within these companies have that information so that they're able to get their employees to offer it. If they're not, if there's an issue with, like I said, making sure that we get the information out, just let me know, and we'll be able to send it to you. I can also send you a PDF if that's easier for you to go ahead and distribute to your constituents. Another one, which is probably another initiative we have, which is very relevant to now that we got 90-degree weather. I know I personally love 90-degree weather. I can have that all year round. But we also have a law that Consumer Affairs enforces called the air conditioning law, where you basically, if you're a business, you have to have your door closed while you're running your air conditioning. If you're a business that has a chain store that has 5 or more stores within New York City, you have to have a sign detailing that law and also file a complaint. Now, the store would be responsible for actually producing the sign, but on our website, it gives you the content of what that sign should include. So this is something, I also have information at the front table so that you can distribute information to your constituents. If you need it in PDF form, I also can email you. So it's something, I guess, especially since we finally made it to summer, it's definitely something we want to make sure that all of the businesses and the residents in the communities are aware of this information. Like I said, we want to get it out as quickly as possible. So we have information for consumers and also for the business owners. Now, a couple of things that recently happened with Consumer Affairs regarding our business licensing is that some of the people were probably aware that starting August the 1st, people who are ticket sellers in the public, they're going to be required to get a New York City Department of Consumer Affairs license to be a ticket seller. So a lot of the people that you may see selling tickets like for tour buses or any type of tickets in the public domain, they're going to be required to go ahead and actually get a consumer affairs license. So we want to make sure that information is out there. We have all of the information to apply for the license on the Consumer Affairs website. So you can just go to the link, it'll give them all the information that they need to be aware of before August the 1st. So it's going to be effective August the 1st. So if somebody's already engaged in ticket selling, they should be aware that by August 1st, they're going to be required to have a license to actually continue their activity. So there's a lot of people, I mean, not as much in Brooklyn and Manhattan. There are a lot of ticket sellers, but Brooklyn at different locations where this is going to be relevant. So it's also good if your community board or your district has people who do a lot of ticket selling, they should be aware, if they're not already aware, that they're going to be required to get a consumer affairs license. There'll be more information as you go forward promoting this so that they're fully aware. Additionally, for people who are disabled veterans, effective June 25th, disabled veterans who want to get helpers, they're going to also be required to basically file with Consumer Affairs to make sure that the information about the helper is actually filed with us so that we're aware of what's going to, if you're a general vendor and you have an additional person assisting you and you're disabled, that we have that information. The actual details in the process are still being worked out, but we would say follow up on our website and you'll be able to get the information of what the general vendor would actually need to do to register his helper with them. Because this is something that's important because a lot of people have requested that they need additional assistance. We want to make sure, though, that the people who are there with the general vendor are the actual helper and not just somebody else who was renting this space. So those are two of the major, new initiatives that we have. We also want to, as a reminder for the districts that have sidewalk cafes, to take advantage of our sidewalk cafe mapping tool. Because a lot of times, I guess I deal with a lot of community boards where they want to get information about sidewalk cafes and the regulations. We put this mapping tool together. It's a great tool. It tells you what cafes are in your community board, what the regulations are, what applications are pending, what areas are allowed to have sidewalk cafes, all in one place. So this way, if you can't reach us or we're very busy, you can just go online and take advantage of that mapping tool. You can go on our website, and I could also send you the link to the mapping tool. Like I said, it alleviates a lot of the issues. Like I said, I know a few of the community boards in Brooklyn are starting to see a proliferation of sidewalk cafes that weren't there in the past. You can just go to the mapping tool, look to see whether the application has been filed, whether it's been approved, whether it's been denied, or whether it's even, that location's even able to get a sidewalk cafe. So that's just something that I said we want to make sure that a lot of the community boards are aware of, so this way they don't have to be thinking and wasting a lot of time finding out that information that's vital. So I don't know if, are there any questions or concerns I can answer in the brief time that I'm here?
Anybody have any questions? Barry?
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you for 2 years ago. You came down to my district, met with a lot of business owners in our district. It was very helpful, and still seeing the results of that.
Okay, you're welcome.
So I thank you for that. I got a question on the stoop line stands. Do you have that information available as well?
When you say the information is for?
If they have licenses for that.
Unfortunately, no, because a lot of people have brought up that question of can we use that, create the mapping tool to add additional licensing categories. At the moment, they're looking into seeing whether that's feasible, but right now it's just for sidewalk cafes because that was one area where there was a lot of concern, a lot of phone calls, a lot of issues. I understand stoop line stands is probably racing quickly behind.
Our office gets a lot of complaints and we can't answer them if it's legal or not. Most of them just assume that it's illegal. I say they may have a license from DCA, but I can't just like look it up right away and say, hey, it's illegal.
Right. I mean, like I said, I can bring that back as a suggestion, but I know in Brooklyn, in certain areas, we have a lot of issues with sidewalk cafes, and we got this. The only thing you can do at the moment is email, like, External Affairs. We'll look it up, and we can tell you whether it's an issue with a cafe, with a stoop line stand.
Doris?
Does the air conditioning regulation apply to restaurants, especially restaurants with sidewalk cafes?
Yes. All business.
So now, a restaurant that has a sidewalk cafe cannot open their doors and windows.
Oh, no, no, you can't leave them open. Leave the front door open,
It's only the door.
the door.
So they can have all the windows and everything
Right.
open, but the door has to be closed. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay.
No?
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Like I said, if you think of anything else, like I said, I'm leaving my information here, and then we can follow up at another time. So thank you for your time. Stay cool.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try using this microphone because this one keeps fading out on me. It's like they want to prevent me from finishing up this meeting. It would be terrible if we couldn't finish. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next and final agenda item, which is really meant to be just a brief overview of some of the key legislative initiatives that the borough president has been working on with his city council partners. We have a much more robust and full city council agenda, but the bills that we're going to talk about right now are really some of the three key priorities we have. And so I just want to make you aware of them. I will describe them briefly for you, take any feedback, any questions, any comments, and then the thought is that we will then bring these back again in more detail to solicit more input from the Borough Board as the legislative process kind of works its way towards a hopefully ultimate enactment. So the first bill is Intro 1218-2016, which is the illegal conversions bill that the Borough President introduced with Council Members Gentili and Williams. And this bill was introduced, I believe it was last week, Councilmember, is that correct? Or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. And the bill would increase the minimum civil penalty for certain immediately hazardous illegal conversions, make such conversions a basis for a vacate order, and make those civil penalties, when unpaid, eligible for a lien sale. So specifically, it would create a new building code violation category called an aggravated illegal conversion. This section of the code would penalize any property owner who creates 3 or more living units in a single unit or part of a unit without proper permit. So this is not going after grandma's basement. This is about creating 3 or more units illegally in an existing building. Big distinction, big difference. I want to make that very, very clear. Not going after grandma's basement type of scenarios. This would also extend the availability of access warrants to investigate suspected illegally converted homes to a broader spectrum of signs. A lot of the feedback that we received from the Department of Buildings is that they are limited in what they can consider as indicia of potential illegal conversion work happening or illegal work happening. And so they were kind of hamstrung into what they could use to go get a warrant to then search the premises. This would be based upon the extraordinarily unsafe state of the building and the emergency nature of the problem. The bill would also allow building inspectors, upon gaining access to the property, would have the ability to make quick applications to have the illegal units vacated immediately, as well as create a fine of $15,000 per unit for violating this section of the building code under aggravated illegal conversions, which is an extraordinarily high fine. I don't recall what it is right now, what the existing fine is for violating the work orders, but it's like $1,000, right? So this would be $15,000 per unit. So hopefully with that big stick, we can then stop a lot of these conversions from happening. The city would, a city agency, most likely HPD, it's still going to be worked out in the final amendments process, would then work to find suitable housing for displaced tenants who have to vacate the premises. We're not trying to throw anyone out of their homes with this legislation, but a home that's unsafe and built unsafe and is basically a room with no windows and no access and no anything is not a home at all, and it's not a safe home. And that's a really important distinction that needs to be made. I mean, just because you have a place to put a cot or a mattress doesn't make it a safe environment to stay. So we want the city to work to help displace tenants who are living in these unsafe conditions. And then again, these fines would then become liens that could be enforceable in a lien sale. So that it wouldn't be just the imposition of the fines, but there would be real teeth to enforcing these fines as well. So that's kind of the overall gist. I don't know if Councilmember Gentili wants to add any comments or anything as well. And then Councilmember Williams will give you a chance. tell you, they just don't want us to talk today. It's just,
All right, very good. I think, Andrew, you covered it well, and let me just add that this bill is focused against the substandard housing that we see happening throughout the borough and in parts of Queens also very, very much. And we want to get across the message that substandard housing is not affordable housing. Substandard housing is dangerous housing. And we are going after the bad actors who take advantage of the buildings that they own and gut the entire building. As Andrew said, this is not about grandma's basement, right? This is about gutting the whole building and subdividing a 2 or 3 family house into a 10 or a 12 or a 14 unit apartment, whereby the bad actor makes a whole lot of profit by charging $1,000 per unit times 14 units. That's $14,000 a month just from that building. But in the process, creates a very hazardous building, usually put up with shoddy construction, shoddy wiring. Wiring can be very, very dangerous. And we saw that in Councilmember Williams' district, and you can mention that when you speak, that we've had injuries and deaths from this kind of construction. So it is going after the bad actor and making sure that the city has some teeth to enforce the law by either gaining access through a warrant and using the lien process if necessary. And the vacate orders would only be used in those situations where the Department of Buildings determines that it is an immediately hazardous situation once they determine it's been an aggravated illegal conversion. So it's only in those situations where there is an immediate hazardous situation there would be a vacate order. Otherwise, the fine would be imposed, and then it would be up to the homeowner, the building owner, to correct those violations and the teeth of the law, as Andrew mentioned. So really, this is about the bad actors and trying to keep those who were forced to be in those situations out of those unsafe situations. And the bill right now is in Councilman Williams' committee, so certainly, and we thank him for his co-sponsorship also.
Thanks to Councilman Gentili. I just want to be very brief on this. It's a fantastic bill which Councilman Gentili and of course the VP and former Councilman Fiddler have been working on for a couple of years at least. And so from the perspective of Jamani, as Housing Committee Chair, we're going to probably hear the bill before the end of the year. So I encourage folks to, if you're not on the mailing list for the Housing Committee, let me know your information and I'll put you on the list, and encourage folks to turn out and speak loudly for the bill when we have the hearing before the end of the year. Thanks.
any questions? Yeah.
Happy to be wrong on this, but my question is, we're turning over enforcement of this to DOB, and isn't DOB the same agency that is supposed to be checking on new construction for these conversions?
Yeah, so one of the issues is, DOB sends out inspectors whenever they get a complaint about these, the construction already happening. Part of the problem, obviously, they'll never have enough inspectors to get to everything, and that's for new construction, existing, whatever. That we all understand that. But part of the problem is that once they get to a site, if they can't gain access into the house, I mean, we're talking about not work being done on the outside. We're talking about keeping the shell, but gutting the entire inside. And we have pictures in this video about, dumpster trucks filled with dirt outside of properties that you wouldn't know, unless you knew what was happening, you would just think it's a dumpster of dirt, but literally the entire inside has been excavated. So unless an inspector can gain access into the building to see that, they cannot go get a warrant or they can't write the violation. And they've been hamstrung, and it's been difficult for them to use the existing statutory criteria for the warrantable conditions to then write those violations. So this bill would give them additional indicia to use in order to seek the warrant, get the proof, and then ultimately issue the violation. So that the existing law doesn't give them enough teeth, basically. Doris.
Is there a time consideration with this? Once they receive the complaint, how much time do they have to act? Because under certain conditions, like on a Class B complaint,
Well, they don't necessarily have to catch it in the act of construction. If it exists, they can be found to violate this new law. So it doesn't have to be during construction.
Is there anything in there about a cure? Now that you've illegally converted this home, is there a cure? Most property owners, first of all, are never going to let anybody in. Secondly, the cure.
Yeah.
I own it, you're going to forget about me, DOB's going to forget about me in a month or two, and I'm going to re-rent all my apartments.
Well, you also, if you're have 3 or more units, let's say you have 10 units and you're fined $15,000 per unit, that's a pretty hefty fine that you're going to have to pay. Otherwise, it turns into a lien against the property. That's number one. There is, and if as Andrew said, we do have provisions to request from the law department a warrant to get in, an access warrant to get in, if they're denied, if DOB inspectors are denied access to the building after several different visits. However, there is a defense, an affirmative defense in the bill, that if the owner of the building, for whatever reason, doesn't live there, doesn't know about it, that's a defense that he wasn't aware of the illegal conversion, but is taking steps to correct the illegal conversion. So that's an affirmative defense in the bill that allows a cure by the owner without having to pay the fine.
Any other questions? So I think given the timeline that Councilmember Williams' office kind of laid out by the end of the year, at a future meeting, I forgot to bring the bill text. I apologize. We'll distribute the bill text, and then we'll consider maybe the Borough Board taking some action on it if that's the will of the board before the hearing or after the hearing and before passage of the bill or wherever we are. But we'll kind of revisit this. And I know that this affects not just parts of Brooklyn. It affects all of Brooklyn. This is happening everywhere. It's happening in Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst. It's happening in Flatbush. It's happening in Queens. It's happening all across the borough. So this is not a localized problem. And so we want to hear from folks from the Borough Board to make sure we're getting your feedback as well. Okay? The next bill is Intro 1063-2016, and this was introduced February 5th with Councilmember Cumbo's office. And this bill would require the Department of Health to ensure that all job centers in the city, all medical assistance program centers, essentially almost all city services, all city buildings that are operated by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, to make at least one lactation room publicly available upon request to an individual utilizing on-site services in that location. The presence of the lactation room will not interfere with an individual's right to breastfeed in public. The Department of Health will be required to create a poster containing information on breastfeeding, an individual's right to breastfeed and to nurse in public, and the availability of the lactation room that we would then be creating under this section of the law. For those of you that don't know, I know we've announced it before, Brooklyn Borough Hall has a publicly available lactation room on the ground floor when you first come in, right past the security desk, and I believe Councilmember Cornegie's office has one, right? If I'm not mistaken, or working on it.
Councilmember Cornegie was the first lactation station
Right.
in New York State.
That's right.
And he actually introduced the bill as just being,
Right, I'm sorry, yeah. It went through Councilmember Cumbo's committee, but it was Councilmember...
don't let Matthew take all of it.
It's that heat, it's just, forgetting all these details. But yes, so...
Male power on that.
But it's really important, and we, here at Borough Hall, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the public on having that available, and we want to see that extended to, in all public buildings. So the bill had a hearing already, if I'm not mistaken, and it's looking like it might be slated for adoption or passage sometime this summer or early fall, according to the information we have currently. So we think that's a really good, that's a low-hanging fruit, and that's a really good thing that we in government can do to make lives easier for our constituents. So we're really happy about that bill. You want to add anything, Councilmember?
We're actually going to discuss it tomorrow at DEM conference, so hopefully it'll come up at the next date.
Fantastic. And lastly, the next piece of legislation has not been introduced yet, but we are finalizing language with Councilmember Traeger's office. And this is legislation concerning 529 college savings plans. And basically, in light of the rising cost of higher education, it's important for people to be educated on the importance of saving for college at a very, very early age, and basically, essentially as soon as possible. So this bill would amend the administrative code to include pre-kindergartners among students that receive college savings plans materials in schools, because right now the law says students in kindergarten and above. So that now that we have a UPK program, we want to start it back 1 year earlier. The value of compounding, that extra year, can make a huge difference when you start saving. And additionally, the bill would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to distribute college savings plan materials to parents and guardians at the same time that the department mails the child's certificate of the registration of birth. So it would be included with that packet that they receive at their home as well. Again, this is it's a no-brainer in a lot of ways. The more we can educate people on the importance of college savings and how simple it is through 529 plans, the better we think everyone will be for that. So I don't know if Councilmember Traeger wants to add anything to that as well, or?
Not particularly. Again, we're just working on finalizing the language and lining up our co-sponsors. So I'm sure many of you will be receiving calls.
And so again, once that bill is introduced, we'll probably bring it back to the Borough Board to consider a resolution in support. I don't think it's a controversial measure in any way, so hopefully that won't be too much of an issue. So that's kind of our 3 key priorities that we're working on right now. And again, if anyone ever has any legislative ideas that they want to bring forward through the Borough Board, we're always receptive to hearing that here at the Borough President's office, so don't be bashful, don't be shy. I'm all ears all the time. So that ends that agenda item. So we'll move on to our any old business to discuss. We have 2 things we're not going to discuss today, but we have not forgotten about the voting rights resolution that we talked about in April, and the bylaws. The bylaws committee met once. We have to meet again to make some have some additional discussion. So in the fall, we'll bring those both back. Obviously, the legislative session in Albany ended without the voting rights bills being passed on, so we have another chance to strike at the iron for the upcoming legislative session next year. So it's going to still be a very ripe and important topic to discuss. Any other old business from any members?
I just want to ask a question. On the
Just talking to the microphone.
On the bylaws, would it be a universal thing?
So this would be the bylaws for the Borough Board.
Yep. Oh, just the Borough Board.
Just for the Borough Board, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
At a future date, our office has talked about in the past trying to review each of the community boards' bylaws and try to identify some best practices that might be helpful. Everyone obviously is free to have their own bylaws, but there are a lot of good practices out there that maybe people aren't aware of. So we'd want to share that information with all the community boards and make a suggestion that if they want to consider changing some of their practices to meet best parliamentary practices, if you could feel free to do so, and we'll probably make some recommendations to that effect sometime in the near future. But that's a separate project from the bylaws review project for the Borough Board. Any other new business? Nobody has anything to share? Nobody wants to say anything? Oh, you have a question? Okay. So you'll remember a couple of months ago, we had an open house here in Brooklyn. It was back in April. It was a Saturday night event, and it was the first time that we opened up, Borough Hall is open to the public at all times, but we opened up the building to the public to come in and learn more about the Borough President's office, Borough Hall itself, what we do here, what types of things we work on. And so one of the things that we did was we asked people, this map was based here in the community room, and we asked people to tell us where they work, where they play, and where they live. And so we have 3 different color pins. And so you'd come in and say, well, I live in Bay Ridge, so I'd put a pin on the Bay Ridge section, and I work in Brooklyn Heights, downtown Brooklyn, I put a pin there, and then where I play, where I go to eat or hang out or this or that. And the idea was to kind of get a snapshot of how people experience Brooklyn in different ways through those different avenues. So before you leave tonight, if you want to grab a pin and you want to put your pin on the map, I heartily encourage you to do so. The more pins, the better. But it was really well received, and it was a great way to kind of get people talking about where they go and learning about different neighborhoods and things like that. So there's white pins, and there's blue pins, and there's yellow pins. I forget what the color coding is. Oh wait, live is white, work is blue, yellow is play. So you have a fair mix.
So since my colleague brought up the map, where is my Midwood?
Midwood's here, right behind me. You don't see it? Midwood?
I take exception to that.
Well, I'm gonna write, you should write a strongly worded letter to the map maker. I think Joe made the map. Joe, you made the map? You write a strongly worded letter to Joe, the map maker. Just kidding. This is on camera, just kidding.
Midwood is a state of mind.
Any other questions about the map or otherwise? Any other business to discuss? So our next scheduled meeting is for Tuesday, August 2nd. Rather than meet that day, we ask everyone to attend National Night Out in your respective community precincts. And then we will reconvene here again in September on Wednesday, September 7th. That said, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Don't all rush at once. Okay, do we have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I want to have a great summer. Stay cool out there.